morning again. Madam Chair, B, we do have a quorum and you are ready to start whenever you would like.
We're ready to go. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm B. Babbitt, and I'm Chair of the Regional Advisory Council to the Area Agency on Aging. And this is our monthly meeting for October.
Morning, B. I was going to come, but got snowed in.
Oh, I'm glad you didn't try to drive because we're only doing it on Zoom today.
But I made it as far as Florissant, and then it got too deep and slick. So,
Oh, wow. Okay. So, well, that's Bill Bowles from Park County. So let's introduce members. Let me see here where our members are.
For the bingo machine. There's a tub out there on top of the.
Okay. Joanne, want to say good morning?
Good morning. This is Jo Ruth, Colorado Springs, and I am very happy to be inside. Thank you.
Eric.
Good morning. My name is Eric Bidwell. I'm a manager within DHS here in El Paso County, and I represent El Paso County.
Okay, Rosemary. Now, Rosemary tells us she doesn't have a voice this morning, but welcome. Okay. Let's see who else. Maria.
Morning, I'm Maria with the Independence Center. We help people with disabilities, and I work in Park, Keller, and El Paso counties.
Wonderful, welcome. Jen.
Good morning. I'm Jen with CCHA, the Medicaid program for Region 7, Park, Teller, and El Paso County. Sorry, my voice is a little bad. I've got a sore throat going on, so I'm respectfully asking that I'm off camera on purpose.
Okay, Jen. Those are the only members I can see. Jody, are there any other members?
I believe you have everyone there. So yes, Maria is just introduced. And so with that, we do have a quorum. And so B, if you'd like to begin, you are ready to go.
Okay. So let's move to approval of the agenda. You can take a look at our agenda for the day. Any changes or corrections? Hearing none, take a look at our minutes. Are there any changes or corrections to our minutes? That would be minutes from the September meeting. Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the agenda and minutes?
I move that they're approved.
second,
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Bill. All in favor of approving the agenda and minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? The agenda and minutes are approved. Jody, are there any public comments?
I have not received any, and I'll open it to those online if they have anything to share this morning. All right, hearing none, we can move on to number 4.
All right. So we have our action item is a bylaws amendment. Rosemary was going to present that, but she's saying she has no voice.
If you like, I'm happy to, Madam Chair.
Yes, please go ahead.
That'd be a little awkward. All right. So the action item requested is the idea behind this. I hope everyone's had an opportunity to receive and review this bylaw amendment request. This is a request to enable the Regional Advisory Council to further and continue leadership on the Regional Advisory Council across progressive years. As you know, once the chair has maximized his or her time on the Regional Advisory Council, they must step down. And so what we've done here is we've proposed, and the executive committee and staff have reviewed the bylaws and reviewed and are making the following motion that an at-large past chair position be added to the bylaws to enable that continuation of that developed leadership from one year into the next. In other words, allowing the experience of the former chair to support the incoming chair on that timeline. So I will let you take a look at that. A couple of things to note. This would be a 1-year term as past chair as a non-voting member in an advisory capacity. The idea is that, for example, current Madam Chair B. Babbitt is due to go off in December. We would love to have her experience and support to the next chair and executive committee into the coming year, 2023. She has held a variety of roles in her time, both as a member and as chair. She sits on the TRS committee. She sits on the SRS committee, and her input is valuable, and we would love to maintain that. And that helps for future board RAC chair positions as well. From a personal standpoint, I've actually served on boards where this was an actual position, a past chair was an actual position and an expectation of the chair at completion, whether they were going off the board or they were within their term period. So they were either brought back on past their term limit, or they received that chair position or that past chair position as their continuation of their service. So this is a little bit new, but it's valuable in the amount of work that we do, and so the motion before you today from the membership committee is to create this at-large past chair role, update the bylaws, and move forward to approve our current chair, B. Babbitt, to continue in an at-large non-voting member role come January 1. Is there a second to the motion?
Second. Joe Ruth.
Who is that? Can I have
Joe Ruth, second.
Joe Ruth, thank you. A second. Is there any discussion or questions? All right, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? All right, the measure passes. Thank you very much. And B, you're up for another year. We appreciate all your work and your time with the RAC, and we look forward to seeing you continue to participate and pass along all that wisdom you've gained. So thank you. All right.
Get off that easy.
Is it wisdom or is it white hair? I don't know.
All right. Thank you. That concludes action item number 4. We can move into number 5, and I will pass that back to you, B.
Thank you. Thank you, Jody. Appreciate it. Okay, well then, we're going to move on to our presentation this morning by Sarah Lipka, Managing Attorney for Colorado Legal Services. Sarah,
And this is Melissa. Give me 1 second to pull up the PowerPoint. And I would like to introduce someone who's sitting here at the table back here with me. I'd like to introduce Jared Varner, because Jared might help me with this transition with this PowerPoint presentation. So just bear with me while I pull it up, and hang in there. Sarah and Amy will get right with you.
Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, let me let Jared say hello and introduce what his role is with our agency.
Good morning, everybody. Jared Verner, Public Information Officer for PPACG. And in that role, it's a lot of the external communication. So obviously right now with open enrollment with Medicare, that has, we've been trying to make sure we get the word out and making sure that people know where they can get help for any kind of insurance options, as well as any other opportunities for people to engage with the Area Agency on Aging and PPACG and any of the services we provide. Definitely, it's a thrill to be able to meet everybody, even if it's virtually. I know the weather is, I love the snow, but I know not everyone enjoys getting out into this weather. So it's great to meet everyone virtually. Please don't be a stranger. Definitely happy to help. And we've got a great team here with Jody and Melissa and Andy, who's also in the room. So great to meet everybody. Thank you very much.
And so I have the PowerPoint on our screen here in the building. Are folks in the Zoom room seeing the Colorado Legal Services?
no,
Or are you still
No.
seeing our agenda? Okay.
we're still seeing agenda.
Okay, great.
Just to get- sure.
I could also share my screen and show the PowerPoint if that is helpful. But there it is. Yeah, I did it.
Okay. And thanks, Sarah, because I almost was going to have you do that, but no, we're moving on. Thanks, guys.
Okay, well, it's nice to see all of you. My name's Sarah Lipka. I'm the managing attorney for the Colorado Springs office of Colorado Legal Services. I have Amy Keckler with me, our social worker.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm a social worker for clients over the age of 60 receiving services here with our agency.
We appreciate the funding. We've been longtime partners with you, and we appreciate your support. I'm going to talk a little bit about our programs. We have two programs, legal and social work. So I'll talk about the legal and CLS as a whole, and Amy will talk about the social work program. Could we go to the next slide, please? So Colorado Legal Services is a nonprofit law firm. Our mission is to provide meaningful access to high quality civil legal services in the pursuit of justice for as many low-income persons and members of vulnerable populations throughout Colorado as possible. We have 13 offices around the state, and the numbers change a little bit here and there, but we have, let's see, it says 79 attorneys and 45 paralegals around the state. Our Denver office is our largest office with about half of our staff. And then the Colorado Springs office is the second largest office with about 25 people in different capacities in and out of this office. Could we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So here's a map where you can see where all the slides are. Is this the same? Oh, all the stars are where the offices are. So you can see that our office covers El Paso County and Teller County, and then Park. We also cover Lincoln County, and then we share with other offices, Fremont, Chaffee, Custer, and Lake counties. So we try a lot to reach out to the rural areas, but a lot of our applicants are from El Paso, just because of population. Next slide, please. So we have a lot of different funding sources. We've been around since 1925, so we're almost 100 years old. We merged in 1999 to become Colorado Legal Services, so you might know us as Pikes Legal Aid. We still have some of the same staff from before then still. We have a board of directors that includes licensed attorneys and also 9 people who would qualify financially for our services, former clients usually. So we take all of our state and federal grants, put them together, and that allows us to provide the services that we do. We appreciate the PPACG grants so that we can help seniors. Can we go to the next slide? I think I talked about that. So Legal Services Corporation is our largest funder, which is a line item in the federal budget. That's about 40% of our funding. We don't do donations in-house. People want to donate, we ask that they donate to the Legal Aid Foundation, which is the fundraising arm of CLS. And then 85% of our resources are expended for direct delivery for service, which I think is a really good statistic. It shows that we try to really focus our attention on providing legal assistance. Next slide. So we provide different levels of service. We can provide full representation for people. But if we don't have enough staff, we don't have enough staff to represent everyone who applies. So we try to at least provide advice or brief service in cases where we cannot provide full representation. We represent people in county court, district court, administrative hearings, like if somebody's public benefits are denied inappropriately, we can represent them at those hearings. Some federal work and appellate work for our cases. So an example of full representation might be representing a tenant who's facing eviction or a domestic violence victim who's seeking a civil protection order or a divorce. Advice could be explaining to somebody that they are collection proof and that you can't go to jail if you don't pay off your credit card, and actually explaining to people that Social Security is protected from most creditors can be really helpful advice. Brief service could be helping somebody fill out the beginning paperwork for a divorce if we can't represent them all the way through, or filing a motion, like a limited motion in a case, but not entering all the way. Or it could be calling a landlord and negotiating before the case is even filed, before an eviction is filed, and saying, hey, let's work this out so that we don't have a judgment for possession. Next slide, please. So the main work that we do is here. For the last several years, the majority of requests for assistance have been with housing. Close second is family law. And then we also provide a lot of consumer cases. So that would be the debt collection cases, and then public benefits as well. So that could be helping somebody get SSI or dealing with an alleged overpayment for state or federal benefits. Next slide, please. So from last year, these are the percentage statewide of the types of cases that we did. You can see that it's 42% is housing, 28% is family law, 11% is consumer, 5% is income maintenance, and 14% is other, which could include unemployment cases, or we have a migrant farm workers division in some offices that helps farm workers. The family law cases, one case is, if it's a divorce, could go on for about a year and require a lot of attorney time. So it's quite a commitment to take those cases on full rep. Housing cases, there's a really high volume of those, and those cases typically move quickly by design. So about a month or 2 months of legal work on those cases. Next slide, please. We also have other specialty areas like I was talking about. We have an ID unit in Denver that we work with very closely here. So if you have somebody that doesn't have their state ID, we can help sort that out. Lou, one of my paralegals, goes with people to the DMV. We have some vouchers, so we can help people get an ID, which of course allows people to have access to public benefits. And if there's some weird reason why they can't get an ID, we have lawyers that do that. So they don't have a birth certificate because they were born at home, or there's a problem like they worked under a different name their whole life. We can sort those things out usually. We have a tax attorney in our Denver office and a tax paralegal in this office who work together to help people who have problems with the IRS. So we don't help file, but if you have somebody that's getting those scary letters from the IRS, that grant is actually from the IRS because they would like us to help sort those out. So you can send those folks to us. With the Migrant Farm Worker Division, which I was talking about, we have a survivor services unit where we can help victims of domestic violence and human trafficking. We have a telelegal partnership, which is a partnership with a hospital in Denver so that people who are seeking medical care are referred to us so that we can look at the legal issues. So that could be, for example, somebody's going in for treatment because of mold exposure. Maybe they need a lawyer to help resolve that issue so that there's no mold in their home anymore. We can try. And then our Durango office does a lot of Native American rights work as well. Next slide, please. In 2021, statewide, we served around 7,517 clients. About 1,900 of those cases were full representation. 5,600 were advice and brief service. And then we made at least 7,800 referrals for assistance. And actually everybody that calls the Springs office, if we can't help, we are giving people a list of other resources, legal and non-legal resources. And we don't even keep track of that because that's just happening all the time, just making referrals all the time. And when we have cases, we also work really hard to issue spot and look for other referrals that are appropriate as well. In this office, the program served 747 clients in El Paso County. And 623 of those were from Colorado Springs. Next slide, please. I'm going to hand it over to Amy to talk about her program and give some examples of how we've been collaborating in the past year. It's been working really well.
So hi, everyone. Last July was when we began our Client Support Services program, which is our social work program. I was hired here in the Colorado Springs office. Since last July, we have served 109 senior clients through this program, and that number has grown since we made this PowerPoint a couple weeks ago. So every week we take on a couple more seniors, and we have actually expanded our client support services, and we have a program director up in the Denver office now, and funding for 2 more social workers up there. So Colorado Springs was the pilot office for this program, and we're trying to expand statewide with funding. Next slide, please. So I wanted to provide, I think I have 2 case examples of what social work looks like here at CLS. So a client not named Jane contacted us from an assisted living facility. She was unhappy living in that facility, but unable to find affordable housing in this town, which I'm sure is no surprise. Her income had been cut to $200 a month from Social Security. And at the time of taking this case, we weren't sure why yet, but she was facing an eviction from the assisted living facility for not being able to meet her obligations after Medicaid paid their part. So one of our paralegals who works with the ERAP program obtained funding to pay all of her past due rent as well as some future to keep her safely housed. Our housing attorney negotiated with that assisted living facility to prevent an eviction. And then I have been working with Jane. We got her a Section 8 voucher, actually. She was pulled off the wait list. So now we are working to look for an apartment for her to be able to move out of the facility as she originally wanted to do. And one of our public benefits attorneys is assisting to figure out why her Social Security is being withheld and to try to help correct that so that she does have money to be able to afford life outside of the assisted living facility. So that was one example where kind of numerous parts of our program have come together to try and help stabilize Jane, and not only stabilize, but to help her meet her goal of getting out of the assisted living facility and be safe in the community. Next slide, please. And so then another client, not named Harriet, applied to us after receiving a notice to quit for failure to pay her rent. She has lived in her home for over 40 years, and she was unwilling to discuss leaving her home. I met with her and quickly learned that she had an overwhelming amount of debt and had been unable to pay her rent for over a year. We learned that she had maximized the ERAP program and was unable to get any more money from them. And she unfortunately fell behind again after utilizing all 18 months. So after numerous conversations about budgeting and about asking for help from friends, I learned that Harriet has a gambling addiction, and she was ashamed to admit it to her family and friends that she needed help. So I connected Harriet with our consumer attorney who reviewed all of the different debts and different payday loans that Harriet had and suggested opportunities for consolidating and reducing the amount owed out. And our housing attorney worked tirelessly to secure a repayment agreement with Harriet's landlord. And as our housing attorney was working nonstop on that, I was reaching out to other organizations, the New Flex Funds program and Catholic Charities to try and get some more money to help reduce her past due rent. At the same time, we all were having conversations with Harriet about alternative housing as a backup plan, budgeting for the future, and encouraging her to get some counseling support. And after weeks of negotiation, our attorney was able to secure a repayment plan that Harriet agreed to. And ultimately, she was able to remain in her home, which I mentioned she had lived in for 40 years. So she was very happy. Next slide, please.
That's it. This is how you can reach us. And actually, I have an announcement, which is we are moving next month. We've been in our current location for so long. We love our building. It has such a rich history, but we have outgrown this space. And so we are moving to 102 South Tejon Street, Suite 430, which is the Alamo Corporate Center, on November 20th. And we are so excited to move because we will be even closer to the courthouse. I'm picturing all the times that we can walk our clients to court and help with safety planning for our domestic violence victims. And so I think it'll help us to continue to provide our services for a long time. I'm gonna send out a press release soon and some emails, but if you could let your constituents, clients know that we will be moving next month, I would appreciate that.
Thank you.
And yeah, any questions? Debbie.
I think you're muted, Debbie.
Yeah, so my question is, do you receive area agency monies like we give you from all of the different area agencies in the state? Or is it primarily, just a couple or?
I think Colorado Legal Services is the legal provider for the vast majority of AAAs. There were a few private attorneys, I think out east, who had been contracted with smaller AAAs for a long time. But we have been actually taking on more contracts lately as well. So yes, we do most of them, including Dr. Cog, and I help with the UOCOG one as well.
And this is Jody. The Colorado Legal Services is the #1 recognized provider for the Older Americans Act and Older Coloradans Act. There are some other resources if if Colorado Legal Services isn't available, but they are the number one recognized and approved. So this is where our primary funding goes for legal support.
So just one other question, those numbers that you gave us back then, were those, I assume you serve other people besides seniors. So those numbers you gave us, were those just seniors, or were those your entire agencies, or, you know, the ones you gave us for this county? Everybody or just seniors?
Those were all of the clients, but then on the report that I filled out, you can see that last year so for legal services, so far this year for this grant cycle, and I think that's only like July and August, we've done 418 hours of legal work and 330 hours of case management. So we've used about 20% of our grant already this year. And that is because, and last year we had similar numbers where I can try to pull it up, but we have been exceeding the grant requirements each year lately. And we're providing quite a lot of assistance to seniors. A lot of seniors call in. We provide phone advice. So a lot of that is people calling in and getting advice, maybe about a debt collector. And I will, while we're talking, pull up my report that I sent in from last year, or if anyone has it while I'm talking, to tell you our numbers from last year, but quite a lot of seniors.
Yeah, that's okay. I was just.
Thank you. And our phone number will stay the same. We're working on that when we move. And thank you, Rosemary, for your comments. Jason, I saw your hand up first. It's nice to see you. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Thank you so much for the presentation. And as a social worker, I'm thrilled that I remember when that decision was made, and it just sounds like what a great solution overall. My question is about the individual that you shared with her particular story and situation. I'm thrilled that we've got some opportunity at Silver Key to be able to bridge for a little bit longer term resource for individuals that are going to lose their housing potentially or need housing with TBRS funding. And don't ask me what that acronym stands for, but the fact is that we've been designated for that. My concern is that the individuals that we'll support are eligible for this support for several months, 12 to 18 months going forward. And the situation you talked about, it seemed like you learned about that at the point of crisis because they've been supported all along during that path. What would you recommend to us to think differently about how we could have been aware that under this tenant-based rental assistance program, that we needed to step back earlier, learn about a situation so we can kind of make sure that we didn't at the end have somebody who had an issue like in the example you have where they're gambling at the end and that kind of, or the budgeting wasn't done well or any of those kind of pieces. What would you recommend to us to be proactive so that we don't get to the point of supporting for all those months and then we're back into the same cycle of where an individual doesn't have long-term housing?
I think that's an amazing question. Her long-term support had been through ERAP, she had maximized on it maybe fall of 2021. And so my frustration with ERAP was that there were no accountability standards with that program. And typically when nonprofits are giving out services, there's a little bit of a follow-up and budgeting and talking about, long-term stability. And so I think with TBRA, my understanding is probably that you guys are doing a little bit of that, as most nonprofits do. And ERAP was just its own unique, here's the money. There was no follow-up on that for her. And so I think she's an excellent example of someone who needed extra support and accountability to make sure she was budgeting for the future when the money did run out.
Fantastic. Yeah, that makes sense to me. We do have those services wrapped around. And I guess I didn't capture that about there was no accountability during that time. So that's what makes it a little bit different for me as we step into this. So that we'll be able to understand more preventatively rather than waiting till the tail end. So thank you for that. That makes sense.
Yes.
But I just want to say that ERAP has been so wonderful though. I mean, I never thought I'd see a program like that in my lifetime. And I know that we have helped through our ERAP paralegal to hand out over $250,000 in rental assistance in El Paso County. And the fact that we could hand it out so quickly, not us, but working with ERAP to get it out to people has really saved a lot of tenants. And so when ERAP goes away, I know a lot of people like Silver Key are trying and coming up with good programs to help with rental assistance, but there was a housing crisis before the pandemic, and that might not have been as like talked about, and it will go back, I worry, to really challenging for those really vulnerable populations in our community.
And I have a question about that client. You said that a lot of her debts were because of gambling. And I imagine that that's probably a difficult situation and she could get into the same kinds of problems again. Did she accept counseling for some of those gambling issues?
I wish I could say yes. We were working with that woman for
A long time.
4 or 5 months, and for a housing case, that's not typical. And so we did have those conversations a lot about understanding that gambling is an addiction, and this is something that mental health services can help with. But she, for a lot of reasons, was not open to that, and I think some of that were cultural differences and just a lot of things about her lived experience. But I would like to hope that we got through a little bit with her about, just even if you can't completely stop your gambling right now, like reducing it and being more responsible with your money and prioritizing your housing and your food is step one. And I hope that we were able to get her on a path to maybe getting to that point.
It's also a good example. Oh, it's a good example of how we have a more holistic approach now, because as a lawyer, I would think, well, we had this great legal victory. We won. And Amy is good to have and say, well, let's also think about the future and prevent this from happening again. And so we're glad to have that. I'm sorry, Debbie, what were you going to say?
I lived in a state that had a lot of tribal casinos and everything. I lived in New Mexico, and all of those casinos were required to have counseling for people who were identified as being addicted. But the problem is, of course, all the internet stuff that you can do for gambling, and for people who are home and can't go out, that's something that's very enticing. And I don't think they have there's any laws that make those places determine who might be addicted and who should be getting some counseling.
We have a question from Cynthia.
How do I get off mute? Right.
There you go. We can hear you.
We're hearing you, Cynthia.
I'm sorry. Two things. One, you can't make someone not follow through with their addictions. You just can't make them. You can offer them services. She would have been a good referral to Pearls, but that aside, in the yellow book on page 72, there are 2 phone numbers for you all. For folks who are in Teller County, all of your information was just about El Paso County, which that's where I live. But which one of those numbers would be good for people in Teller County?
I don't have the yellow book in front of me, but I know that Amy was making a lot of referrals for resources. So I'm not sure if we use those.
So do you do Teller County as well?
Yes.
Oh, we do. Yes, we do a lot of Teller. We actually go to the Aspen Mind Center each month and meet with applicants there. And Ariel Beatty, one of my attorneys, really has a soft spot for Teller. So she goes up there quite a bit. Yes.
So then I'm going to guess there are 2 phone numbers. One is an 800 number and one is a 719 number. I'm going to guess that the 719 number would directly lead to you.
Oh, are you talking about does page 72 have Colorado Legal Services phone number on there?
Yes.
Yes. And when we move, our phone number will stay the same. The 719-471-0380.
So that that goes directly to you. The 1-800 number goes to,
I think we also have a 1-800 number just for increased access for people. So that might be what you're looking at.
yes. And some services don't go to Teller County. Area Agency on Aging covers 3 counties. And so we need to know which ones do and don't.
We definitely serve Teller County. And we enjoy serving Teller County. And actually, we have expanded our outreach a little bit to the Tri-Lakes region as well this year. Sorry, it's also El Paso County, but we hadn't been doing that previously. So we're glad that we set that outreach up. So, yes.
Maybe sometime we can carpool up there. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for your presentation. Before I let you go, I get a lot of, as most people know, I answer phones on Monday mornings and connect seniors to resources at the AAA. And I get a lot of calls from seniors talking about a relative moved in with them and is stealing money or other things. Or should we refer them to you? And is that a good route to go?
I think that, well, one thing that I would always like to be able to do is help people get civil protection orders for elder abuse. But it is so hard for people to do that because often the person that's abusing them is their adult child or someone they're very close to. And so it's a hard thing to unpack. But I think generally send people over, and each fact pattern is different, and we can look and see if there's a legal remedy or not. Yes. Leslie.
Hi, Leslie with Invita. We get quite a few drivers who are picking up clients at their homes, and they get there and their homes are in shambles, or they're very concerned about the living conditions. Is that something that's referable to you if the client agrees?
I agrees, but also APS.
Yeah,
it seems like that could be appropriate. Amy and I are on a task force. Is it called just the Elder Abuse Task Force?
Elder Abuse Coalition.
The Elder Abuse Coalition, where we have lots of agencies. I think Silver Key's on there too, where we come together and try to discuss as a group really challenging cases so that we can work together.
so like hoarding. Okay.
Right. So we wouldn't be able to help with hoarding, but if they're being evicted because of hoarding, or if their landlord is threatening to evict them because of, then that would be where legal assistance could come in. And then if they're a senior, I can also come in then and try and unpack the hoarding issue and see if we can find some stability there.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, if you're running into a hoarding situation, you can report that directly to adult protection, and they can view it to see if they can assist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a safety issue more than anything. Okay. Thank you.
Lori?
Hello. I just want to say, if the person someone sees as the homeowner, Silver Key has a partnership with Habitat for Humanity to do repairs to seniors so they can age in place. And so that's an element. If it's a landlord, then clearly we have maybe APS. I'm also on the Elder Abuse Council. And those things could be put in place. But if it's a homeowner who's just unable to manage the magnitude of home repairs, you might want to send them to Silver Key, and we do a whole assessment and work with Habitat to stabilize housing that way.
That's great. And that reminds me also that similar to ERAP, there's an EMAP program where we can help homeowners who are behind on their mortgage. And we have an attorney that works on foreclosure defense work. So if you have a senior homeowner who is in danger of foreclosure, you can send them over to us. Were you going to say something?
Oh, I wasn't familiar with the partnership with Habitat, so that was great information. Thank you.
Is that also in Teller?
Everything that we do is in Teller also.
The Habitat, the Habitat grant is only for El Paso County.
Okay, thank you.
And this is Melissa. I'd also like to mention regarding the hoarding situation. You know, I have worked closely with Pearls, with Cynthia, on numerous hoarding situations with older adults where, you know, folks were just really having to, you know, take some time to dig into organizing their life a little better. Also getting pretty significant behavioral health support if they were open to that. And so kind of the combination of two things can happen with the hoarding situation. One is with Pearls, kind of goal setting, you know, looking down the road, how do you want your life to look? What kinds of things do you want to be working on? Setting those goals and working toward them, but then also getting more significant behavioral health counseling if they're open to it, where they really are, you know, talking about traumas that have led to their hoarding or just whatever underlying mental health issue they might be dealing with that leads to the hoarding. So I think that there are two really beneficial resources in our region now to help with some of that hoarding. But I will also say, just as the case that, you know, Colorado Legal Services talked about, you know, they don't all get resolved either. And so it is, you know, heartbreaking when they don't, but I have seen success happen with a couple of cases. And so let's keep those conversations rolling for sure. And I see Lori has her hand up and Cynthia wants to talk too, but let's go with Lori. Or maybe Lori changed her mind. Okay,
I think
Cynthia.
maybe Lori asked her question already.
I guess that means me, and she can come back. Thank you, Melissa. Yes, Pearls, I don't want to be marketing Pearls here. This is not the place for it, but we work with people who want to make those changes. It's not, we can't, I'm sorry, but you know, if people don't want to make those changes, it's not going to happen. Those TV shows that we all have heard about, they're great for people like me and helps me want to get rid of more stuff. But for hoarders, they don't watch those. Somebody comes in and cleans out their house, and a week later, they're starting to bring stuff back in. So it really needs somebody, not us social workers, but somebody who really understands, a good therapist. This is another reason why Pearls is very interested in working with lots of different agencies, so the right people can come and support that particular need. So, you know, we'll work with them if they want to do that, a little bit at a time, get rid of a little, you know, clean the kitchen counter. Great, you know, but I can't make somebody stop gambling. I can't make somebody stop hoarding. I want to get them the right people. So
Well, thank you, Cynthia, and thank you to our speakers. I think we need to move on with our meeting this morning. One of the things the obvious conclusion here is the importance of the various agencies working together, isn't it? Because each agency has their specialization, and somebody else may be able to fill in with some other need. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to our membership committee. I don't know, Melissa, can you fill in for?
Yeah, you bet. Yeah. So I was just getting ready to type a little note in the chat too. So yeah, hi everybody. And with our membership, subcommittee. We are excited to have some people that are showing some pretty good interest in the RAC right now. Today, visiting with us is James Woodard, and James actually is up in the Teller County area. He's a member of the Teller Senior Coalition, and he has submitted his application to the Regional Advisory Council, which we appreciate having. I'm also going to give a little bit of background here too, because for quite a few years, we had Carol Parks. She was our Teller County representative, and she had been appointed by the Teller elected officials quite a few years ago and had been with us. And recently, just within the last couple of weeks, passed away. They had her memorial service at the Cristola Roadhouse over the weekend. I don't know if anybody here was in attendance on that or not and wanted to share. I'll turn that over here in a second. But, we were sad to see that happen for Carol. And we know she'd been really battling a lot of illnesses over the last couple of years too. And so James, expressed interest with us, and we have forwarded his application on to Commissioner Eric Stone up there in Teller County to consider him as the Teller County appointee. And so we're waiting to hear back on that. And then we'll be sharing more here with James and our RAC in the near future. We've also had some interest from some folks out on the Eastern Plains as a result of our community conversations. So stay tuned for more coming from that. And so that's kind of where we're at with our membership subcommittee. So thank you, James, for joining us today. And I don't know if you want to just say a few words about Teller County or your interest in serving older adults, or if you want to pass, but I'll turn it over to you if you have anything to say.
So I've been on the board for the Teller Senior Coalition for a little while, and I've learned a great deal. And then I learned that there were opportunities to learn even more and possibly contribute. This is a great community, and the ability to assist older adults is just a wonderful opportunity, I think.
Thanks, James. And I think that's all I have from membership, unless I did miss anything, but I think that's it.
Well, thank you, Melissa, for giving us an update. As you said, these community conversations have been good in terms of connecting with people in different parts of the area, and hopefully we will have some new members because of it. Okay, Strategic Review Subcommittee, Jen?
So we recently, Jody and Melissa were there in person, but we had joined and listened in virtually to the results from the CASOA meeting, and we'll be getting some access to the more detailed results of the survey and what the findings have been. So we're moving a little bit forward finally and getting some answers on how we'll be putting together the 4-year plan. So more to come at that, but that's our current status.
And for those who are new, what is CASOA?
The CASOA is the Commission, Colorado, gosh darn it, Jody, there's the alphabet thing.
Well, can you tell us? I mean,
it's
they
like
do
unit on aging.
It's a survey of older adults.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
It's a mouthful, but that's effectively what it is. It was started actually in Boulder. It was founded by an agency in Boulder a few years ago, and now the state of Colorado AAA offices have used them. This is the third time that they've used them to help put together a survey across the state. And so this year we were able actually to get funding for that through the SB 21290 legislative funds, so that AAAs did not have to pay out of pocket for this fund or for this survey. So that was very exciting. And so the survey of older adults was sent out across the state to a random sampling to include our three counties. And as Jen mentioned, there was an initial. Thank you. Melissa is putting that in the chat. So it's the Community Assessment Survey of Older Adults. So that's the full name. Yes, we work with so many acronyms here; it's hard to keep track sometimes, and a lot of you know that. But the nice thing about this survey is it was an independent survey. It's being all worked on now, and we did hear an initial report out late last week as part of one of our regular AAA conferences. But that in coordination with the results of the community conversations, along with demographic information and so much more, will go in to the writing of the 4-year area plan that is due to the state in March. And so you'll continue to hear more from staff and from Jen as the chair of the SRS committee. So thank you for being part of that.
Thank you, Jody. That explained it a lot better than I can. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Jen. Appreciate that. Well, Jody, you're back on with your director's report.
All right. So I'll just continue in that same vein. Just a big thank you to both staff and in particular our volunteers from the Regional Advisory Council who have been attending with us in the community conversations. I'm not going to try to list all that's attended because since I was out a better part of September working out of state again, I did not get to attend a couple. And so I'm sorry I missed those, but I've heard great things. And as Melissa mentioned, there's already some immediate effect from folks wanting to be engaged with us. And so that's very exciting, even if that's not the original intent. So we always like those, like to have that kind of feedback. So, but yeah, just a huge thank you across our RAC and staff who've been able to participate. For those of you who don't know, the community conversations are just that. We work with our providers across the region to help invite older adults into a conversation with AAA and RAC members. We have some directed questions, directed topics that are part of the requirements that we have from our state contract around the 4-year plan and conversations. But it is just that. We go into communities and invite folks to have a conversation with us. So many of us have worked, and I know on the screen, those through Zoom, as well as here at the office and here at the AAA, we could sit all day in our office and have a good idea of what the needs are. But we're learning so much when we go out and speak with the folks directly who are living the issues and living the challenges. And so being able to hear from them, we do let them know. I kind of joke, and B has been good about this at the beginning when we intro the session, that we're not really there to solve any problems. We need to hear what the problems are so that we can look for solutions. So many times we have folks who have direct and immediate need, and the beauty of having volunteers in the room, service providers in the room, when we have those conversations, is we can say, okay, when we're finished here, I want you to go talk to her. You need to talk to him, and we'll leave time for that. And so many of our folks have had that opportunity, or just to meet with us afterwards, and we peruse the yellow book and make sure that they know where those resources can be found. And so, like I said, a lot of secondary and tertiary benefits have come out of the community conversations. In the back of my mind, I think, and this would give my staff heartburn, it's like, we should do this every year. Melissa's back here saying, yeah, well, yeah, I was thinking that too. But it's such a reality for us to make sure that we have that direct connection. And while we do serve folks directly, just because we're the AAA doesn't mean we have all the answers. That's why we have awesome folks like you on the Regional Advisory Council and providers to make sure that we're staying connected and we can make sure that we're serving the needs. It also gives us the opportunity when additional funding comes our way, if we know what those needs are, even if they aren't immediately covered by current funding, if we are made aware of other funding, and we can put those together. And that's all part of the collaboration that's so important across the region and across the state ultimately. So always remember that. We talk about that at our quarterly provider meetings around collaboration and sharing information. We don't want to take over your job. We have plenty to do on our own plates, but if we're aware and then we're made aware of resources or funding, then we can put two and two together and make sure that the issues have a better resolution. And so I just continue to invite you to that collaboration and that collaborative mindset, because that's what we're here and what we're about. So just moving through my list. So the CASO and the 4-year plan, you're going to continue to hear things about this at our regular meetings, but do know that there will be a draft. It does have to go through the RAC and ultimately presented out to the board as drafts before we submit that to the state in March. And so you will have an opportunity to review it. If you are not part of the SRS committee right now, I would invite you to reach out to Jen and Melissa as your, of course, keep in mind, Melissa is your where's your title? Your role on this.
So my role is program development.
Yes.
Which means that I'm kind of overseeing the pieces with the 4-year plan along with Melody and Jody too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And so Melissa, is anything related to the RAC, if you have questions, feel free to CC her on that, so that when you do reach out to Jen, make sure you include Melissa if you're interested in being a member of the SRS. Now, I will say that the TRS is going to have a big role to play this fall and spring as well, because since late July, we did receive our ARPA contract from the state. That is the American Rescue Plan Act. You've heard me talk about that. We hope to have the what's called the Notice of Funding Availability. It's a little bit different than the RFP. The RFP points specifically into entering data into the OASIS systems here with budgets and things like that. So we're going to be handling the ARPA funds a little bit differently, and providers who are not here today will get this information. So but we will be pursuing distribution of the ARPA funds through a notice of funding availability with a specific timeline. The ARPA funds do have until September 30th of 2024 for allocation. And so we don't have to be in the rush that we were with the CARES Act funding, but we do want to be deliberate and thoughtful how these funds are used across the region. The ARPA funds are specifically for capital and capital growth in order to expand programs. And so, of course, the appropriate language will be in that NOFA that will be going out. One thing that I have shared with the providers at our recent quarterly provider meeting last week is to think how this might serve either building current programs, expanding programs to serve parts of the region that you've not served before through AAA dollars, or ultimately how can a program be built up and served even crossing county lines. Now, I will say that I'm really proud to say that our providers do that already in really great ways. Park County Senior Coalition, Teller Senior Coalition, Silver Key, and several others already work across county lines. And I'm really, really happy to share that, not just in this group, but I brag on that at our regional and state meetings, our state and federal national meetings. And so that's already being done, but that is even more important right now with the requirements under the ARPA funds. And so be thinking about what that might look like as you're thinking about projects. And we hope to have that out very soon so that we can start getting our TRS subcommittee together and reviewing that. The other also around funding is we did receive confirmation last week that we will have carryover funds. That's both a blessing and a challenge. A blessing in that there's additional funding going to be coming in. The challenge is that it simply means that we're not spending enough. And I hate to say that out loud because that's a dangerous path to walk down. But at the end of the day, it is crucial for us to spend these funds because the state has already been talking about implementing the carryover cap. They had been discussing that before the pandemic, before March of 2020. They put that on hold during the pandemic since there were so many unknowns, but they have re-enlivened that conversation, and we do expect that by the 2024 contract period, which will actually be the 23-24 contract period, so effectively starting next July, that they will begin capping the carryover. And what that means is simply that anything carryover balance above whatever cap that they establish will not be returned to the region for spending. It will stay within the state of Colorado, but it will not come back to the immediate region. And so we're taking some additional steps internally to ensure that that our current spend down by providers and internally, as well as this carryover that we're about to receive, will be spent as tightly as possible, so that we can be in a good place come the following year. Now, one thing that will make that probably a little easier, not in a positive way, but a little bit easier, is that we will be losing, we're on the tail end of our homestead exemption funds. That translates to about a little over $300,000 a year in our current OAA funding that we receive. And it's actually specifically from the Older Coloradans Act because that is a state fund. But that homestead exemption was a 5-year, $3 million across the state, distributed by the funding formula. And that is due to expire. There will be a tiny, tiny, tiny amount in the 23-24 contract period, but for all intents and purposes, that will be expiring here June 30th of 2023. So it'll make it a little bit easier for us to maintain and track against our carryover excess, but we want to make sure that we're spending. So I've already started having conversations with providers. We started that conversation last week with providers at our quarterly provider meeting to really take a hard and fast look at spending to making sure that we're on track. Some folks, because of the reality of their client base, and so many clients, we've seen this across not just our region, but across the state and nationally. Folks began to receive services or increase services during COVID, and that has created a challenge to the system in certain areas. And so that's great that people are reaching out for services. The challenge is that our funding remains flat. We're still working from 2019 level funding. And so that, as you can imagine, that is a great challenge. And so providers are encouraged to look for additional resources and additional funding sources. But as usual, we will get these funds out to the community as quickly and efficiently as possible. We are still under the FEMA major disaster declaration, which means that the funding that we currently have that was distributed during the major disaster declaration continues to have the flexibility until that order is rescinded. At this time, we don't have a timeline for the rescinding of that order, and so it's business as usual. However, we are beginning to make plans as if that rescind order could come at any moment. We do have a 90-day window once the order begins to be rescinded. They have to give a 30-day notice that they're going to rescind, and then once that 30-day expires, there's an actual 60-day window of when the order is rescinded. So effectively, we'll have 90 days notice when that happens. But we're already starting to make some plans and budget work, as well as some of our future planning, assuming that could go away at any moment. I feel that's the best way to go instead of being surprised, because there's no excuse since we know it's coming. The last piece I want to share is just a reminder for those of you who may not know, the Golf Acre Shopping Center, where the Colorado Springs Senior Center is housed, along with a variety of tenants, many of those being senior service provider tenants. The city has set aside an amount of money from their ARPA funds to tear down that complex, or most of that complex, and rebuild a senior center on that site. There's still a lot of work to be done with the city and planners. But one thing I wanted to share is that we have 3 contracted providers in that Golf Acre Shopping Center there at the 1500 block of North Hancock. Of course, the Colorado Springs Senior Center is one of those. The other is Community Dental Services with Community Dental Health with Michelle Vaca, and New Vision Services with Rebecca Shields. I want to express, and in no uncertain terms, that their funding will not be pulled back. I have this. I've had meetings with each of them. Their contract will remain in place. However, we have started having some additional and extra more often conversations as they begin to figure out what their move looks like. As you know, Community Dental Health actually started as a senior mobile dental program. And so while they still need a real office space, Michelle is confident that they'll be able to maintain some level of service, just not to the extent while they get their move in place. New Vision with Rebecca Shields. It's a challenge there just because of the type of services that she offers. And so what I would ask, all the folks that are here on Zoom with us during our meeting, you all have a different circle of influence. You know different people than I know, and you drive to work a different way than I do. I would ask that you keep your eyes out and reach out to them. If you're not sure how to reach out to them, reach out to me with any potential vacant office space that might be accessible for them. Accessibility is huge because of the clientele that they serve, but I would encourage you to take a look, keep an eye out for the next few weeks and months as they begin their move process. Right now, Community Dental Service currently uses around 2,900 square feet, and New Vision uses around 1,300 square feet. That's where they're currently are in their spaces and what they may be looking for. So if you have any ideas, of course, both of them would love to stay in that general part of town there by the Patty Jewett Golf Course and East Middle School, Galileo Middle School. Been here a while. So Galileo Middle School there in that central part of town. But if you're aware of any openings or know someone who knows someone who knows someone, please, please, please pop me an email, call me. I'm happy to pass that along. Their leases expire March this coming year. But they both hope to move as quickly as possible so that they're not rushed and that they can continue serving their clients as best possible. So with that, I will open it to questions. And if no questions, then I will hand it back to Madam Chair. All right, a lot of information, a lot to digest. When you get out to your car or you run an errand and realize, oh, I should have asked him that question. Well, you know where I am, you know how to reach me. And so I invite those conversations. I have a running joke with Jason DeBueno with Silver Key that he's famous for calling me about 5:15 in the evening and saying, hey, we have something, we have an idea, we want to run it by you. In all seriousness, I invite every single provider to do the same. You have an idea, send me a note, let me know. The best way I can support you at the end of the day is knowing what your challenges are and how, just working those conversations through with you. But then also I can tuck that away for when we have potential solutions, funding, connections, collaborative efforts, whatever that might look like. So I'm very happy to be part of that conversation with you. Thank you, B. I'll hand it back to you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I just, I've been participating in these community conversations, and I just wanted to give you a little preview of a couple things that have come up that I thought might be interesting to our members. One of the things that happened out at Callahan is we became aware of their food bank that served, I believe it was over 400, was it even 500 individuals every month, such a large number of people. And that became an important piece of information because one of the issues that came up was the whole issue of how do we get the word out to seniors about all the services that are available to them. And once we became aware of the food bank, it became obvious that having information distributed at that food bank would reach an awful lot of people who need senior services. So that's just one place where that community conversation, I think, will result in more seniors knowing about the services that are available. In Fountain Valley, one of the concepts that was discussed was the need for continuous trip transportation. I probably don't have the terminology quite the way Laura would express it, but the concept being that when one goes to the doctor right now, oftentimes that's the end of the route. And then one is picked up later, after your appointment and you go back home. But many times what the seniors said they needed was go to the doctor, stop at the pharmacy and pick up their medicine, maybe stop at the grocery store to pick up a few groceries and then head home. Now that's a complex need, but it seemed like it was a very real need. The other piece of information I wanted to share is recently I gave a presentation at a women's group that I'm a part of on services for seniors in the community, and I distributed the yellow books at that event. It's always interesting to me that even though most of my friends are in my age group, they tend to not think that they need any services. But if I rephrase it, if I have a yellow book in my hand and suggest that they might want to take it home. They say, well, I don't know, I may not need this. And then I'll say, but do you know, maybe you know somebody, a family member or a neighbor who might need some help? Oh, suddenly they'll take the book and hopefully spread the word of senior services that are available. Anyway, I just wanted to share a couple thoughts today about both the community conversations and getting the word out regarding services for seniors in our community. Okay. Do any members want to bring up any other items to discuss? Seeing none.
I see Maria, you have your
Oh,
hand.
does Maria?
Yes, I just wanted to let everyone know that the Independence Center is a polling place this year, and our building is fully accessible. So is our parking lot. So if you know anyone that wants to vote in person, please direct them to the Independence Center. I'll throw our address into the chat. And then I also wanted to let you know that we will also be in a sister site for the Connect for Health Colorado marketplace. So we'll be providing a lot of health insurance literacy and helping people apply for the marketplace if they don't qualify for other insurance. So I'll also put in our phone number for that as well.
Thank you, Maria. Are there any announcements, calendar events that you want to let us know about?
B, if I may, I failed to add something. I mentioned a couple times the quarterly provider meetings. The RAC membership are welcome and invited to join those quarterly provider meetings as well. Our next meeting will be January 18th, typically in the morning, but be watching for that. We do include you on the invitations, but just want to make sure that you knew that is that you are welcome to join those to listen to what we're sharing with providers.
Terrific. I know I missed the last one, but the previous one, it's always informative to get down in the weeds with the details of what our providers have to do. Okay. Debbie?
I find those meetings really helpful considering I'm on the TRS subcommittee and, divvying out various funds to agencies. It's really helpful to get to see some of those people and look at their questions and learn a little bit more about what they do. So I have attended those meetings and I do find them very helpful.
Any other events or comments from our members? Any guests want to share something with us? Well, as you can see, our next meeting, we've changed the date. We usually do this because of Thanksgiving holiday. And so we've moved our next meeting to December 1st to accommodate the Thanksgiving break. So just you might want to change that repeating meeting date on your calendar. And our next executive committee meeting will be the first Wednesday at 1 via Zoom as in the past. If there's no other business today, thank you so much for attending today and for sharing. And we look forward to seeing you on December 1st. I now adjourn the meeting of the Regional Advisory Council. Thanks again. Bye.